Hi, timekeepers. Thanks for stopping through the My Reader Minutes. For those that are new here, welcome. To those that have decided to join me on my journey, thank you so much. And welcome to the Timekeeper crew. Before I dive in, I just want to say please like, share, and subscribe. Subscribing is a free way to support the channel. Now, in Carrie Huger's voice, let's talk about it. Today, I want to talk about the Real Housewives of Potomac reunion show, the first segment. This is for season 10. And all the ladies look nice in their red. But prior to getting to the reunion show, once Eddie and Wendy Osefo were arrested and the cameras came back up, it seems like the cameras came back up maybe a week later after they had been arrested. Because I want to say Eddie basically said it's been 7 days since something happened and, whatever. But this particular segment or this particular dialogue between these two it was like, I don't know, not so much on Eddie's part, but Wendy was like, it felt so unreal. Like, girl, are you acting? Like, why are you talking so low? Like, oh my, it's like, what is this going to do to our marriage? I was like, come on, like, what? Huh? What y'all saying? It was just too much. It was too overly dramatized for me. Okay, I understand it was traumatizing. Maybe you'd never been behind bars before. Granted. But for this segment, you would have been like, you know what? I don't know what to say. Oh my gosh, like I can't believe that happened to us. I would be more not woe is me type thing. It would be more like, oh my God, can you believe the police came here? We didn't even do anything. We cooperated. Whatever the police asked us to do, we did because we were like, what's this about? I can't believe that you're putting us in handcuffs and not the people that robbed our home. Because I would still be saying that same line. You know what I mean? But anyway, so they talk about that and then they go into the different rooms, people getting ready, and they all come out. Now, when Giselle came out, Andy said, you're going to be sitting next to Wendy. And she was like, okay, she's like, okay, how can I help? Well, what's my role in this? Or I'm paraphrasing, but it was like, what do you want me to do? Want me to hold her hand? I'm like, what? I mean, is this her show? I feel like this is Giselle's show. I mean, she's taking it over or taking it back from Karen, or her and Karen, I don't know. Anyway, long story short, so Andy goes right in and starts talking about Wendy, asking her some questions. He said, we got to address the elephant in the room. He's like, what happened? Pretty much. And she talks about how she was laying down for a nap. I don't know if Giselle chimes in and starts talking about the wig. They was like, the wig was wigging. And she was like, look, I was laying down for a nap and, I feel like she was laying down for a nap. She threw that wig on. And then they talked about her smile because she was smiling. She said the guy that was taking the pictures was trying to, was trying to make light of the situation. And he was like, give me another look. Give me another look. And so, because she said she had been crying the whole time, when it came out, she, was kind of smiling, but she said no one popped a happy Eddie. Eddie, who looked like he might have popped a happy Eddie, had not popped a happy Eddie. So they're saying that they weren't under the influence of anything. She talks about how I think she said she was laying down for a nap, Eddie came and got her and was like, the police are outside. And then right then and there, she said she called her sister, told her to pick up the kids or the kids have to stay with her, for the evening or whatever. At least until they got out. So my question at that point would have been like, well, what would make you feel like you could, like when the police were at your door, why did you think they were there? Did you know that they were there for you? Because my first instinct wouldn't have been to call my sister to come pick up my kids unless I knew I was going. You know what I mean? That made no sense to me unless the police allowed them to call, and say, well, my kids are such and such. Can I call somebody to come pick them up type thing? And so maybe they did that. I don't know. That's not what she said. She basically said Eddie came to her, said the police were outside. At that moment, she said she called and told her sister to go pick up her children. I don't know where they were. So she said her one child, Carter, and I want to say, I'm assuming he's the oldest boy. I don't know. She said that he was the one. He went on his phone. He was like, it was strange for him to go spend the night at his aunt's. He's like, what's going on? So she said he picked up his phone and saw, stuff. And then, she said he could tell when they went to go pick him up, that he was kind of not being himself or didn't look like himself or was acting a little funny. And she asked him, what's wrong? What's wrong with you? And he was like, where were you? As if he was interrogating his parents, basically. Where were you? To see, I guess, see if they were going to not tell him the truth. And she says, I try not to lie to my kids. I can't remember how she said it came out, but she said she got in the back seat with him and hugged and cried it out or whatever and said everything's going to be okay. But she didn't know. I guess later he told her that he got on his phone, found out where they were, and then he went to sleep on it because he felt like something wasn't right and kept it from his grandmother and his aunt. And so I don't know. So then, they were like, everybody was like making these faces like, oh my God, like the kids knew, things like that. So I think Giselle asked her, well, are you okay? And when he was like, no, I'm not okay. She says, I'm terrified, But she can't really say that. And so I guess Andy was asking, like, what can you tell us? And she basically said, we were arrested. And I can tell you that we've been to court already and it's still under investigation. She really can't speak on it because it is an ongoing case. And I don't think she didn't say that they had a court date, but I want to say they do have a court date that comes up in April. She'll have we'll know a little bit more, I guess, unless they postpone it. Don't know. Right after that, Andy said, well, we're going to have to come back to you. So then they start in on Stacy. Stacy was on Vanity? The Vanity magazine. So Giselle basically said, with everyone going to jail, no disrespect, Wendy, but Wendy, Karen, that was good news. So she said, congratulations. And Stacy's like, wow. Like she couldn't believe that Giselle was congratulating her, And then they go into, I think somebody asked a question, or viewer must have asked a question saying, about Stacy deflecting from the last reunion about her starting her own cannabis business. And she said at the time she was asked, she didn't have a cannabis business. And yes, she can say she had held many meetings about different opportunities. She said, but at the time that Giselle asked, there was nothing that had spun up or went into production or so Giselle was like, well, that's all you had to say. Like maybe you were in talks with her. And Stacey said, I don't owe you that, Giselle. Basically, like, I don't have to tell you my business. Like, mind your business. Why would she speak? And I have to agree with Stacey on that. Honestly, she don't owe Giselle or anybody else up there, what she's doing. Now, mind you, once it comes into fruition, she has to share it with the show because of whatever her contract is, they have to share their life. Prior to that, she's not owed them anything because it hadn't been established. I agree with Stacey. Why am I speak on something before it actually comes into play? Then they start talking about the name of the business. I think Andy asks Wendy, like, what did she think about the name? And then Stacey pipes up and says, because I'm, honoring my Nigerian heritage. Wendy goes, she said, well, I think she did that to get back at me and Eddie for the whole TJ thing. Stacey says, that's really interesting. Giselle says, you think she's that deep? And Wendy says, no, I think she's that smart. So Giselle's like, oh. Then they start going into TJ and was it true and how people they ran into when they were out in California came to them. I think it was an actress friend of TJ said that, that Stacey was paying him or whatever. I don't know whether she was paying him or not. Guess what, Giselle? Okay. What was that fiasco between you and that little young boy from that other reality show on the same network? Because guaranteed, y'all were not a thing. Okay, y'all might have been cool or whatever, but my suspicion said you might have been giving him a chunk of your change too. So I don't know, but that wasn't a true relationship. And then, because then with the whole Jamal thing, Jamal came on there. Monique bust that wide open when he came on there acting like he was your new love interest. Because he was telling whoever he was seeing at the time that this wasn't real. It was just for her to be on the show or whatever. Giselle can't. I don't think this is a thing that she should pick on Stacey about. Find something else, Giselle. Find something else. And then by her getting back with Timo and all that kind of stuff, Giselle tried to do the same thing there. So, anywho, then they go back into and I might be out of order. I'm just going by what I remember because it's going on Share Memory. They talk about going up memory lane. They talk to the OGs, which is Giselle and Ashley, and how they've come 10 years and how it all got started. I sensed a little snarkiness in Giselle because Andy basically said it was a mom's group. She said it was you, Giselle, and Karen and Charisse. Giselle says, no, Charisse wasn't in that. Okay. So I sense some type of tension there. And then as soon as she says that, the camera pans to Ashley to get her reaction. Nothing. She says nothing. I don't know. I think that has a lot to do with Charisse going on her reaction to, I'm not sure exactly when Reunion was filmed, but it must have been filmed right around the time that Charisse was going around doing her reaction tour, right? To how she reacted to Ashley being with her son and her response about that. And then she had kind of like thrown some darts at Giselle in the process. And Giselle didn't take too kindly of it. Even Giselle went to her podcast, Reasonably Shady, and made a comment about Charisse on there. Anyway.
But just don't talk about it on national television. It's nobody's business, especially when they're not cast members. Jackson's not a cast member. Charisse is a friend that popped in what, 3 times? Like, I thought that was tasteless of Ashley to do.
Okay. My thoughts are, I hear you, but I don't, that part, it's not I don't care about. What I care about today is Charisse. We discussed it on camera. Yes. Me, Ashley, Charisse. I personally thought when Ashley was in the process of mentioning it, I thought Charisse was going to like flip a table, go to hell off, go crazy. I don't know, anything. None of that happened. Okay, great. Right. And so she's giving the same energy that you just described, Robin. Jackson's grown. He can do what he wants, which he is. And so is Ashley. Ashley's a beautiful girl. And Charisse has for years made comments about Ashley being her daughter-in-law. And right. They were flirty, and that would be so cute, blah, blah, blah. So there's no issue here. Okay.
Right.
Then when it was brought up again in a whole nother scene, Charisse had the same energy. Like she kind of like thought it was funny. It was kind of cute, whatever. You can't then let the fans gas you up to then have a moment, to then have an issue off camera.
Right.
Like, no, that's just, I think it's ridiculous. And then how I'm catching strays is beyond me. Okay. Right. And how Charisse is rewriting history is beyond me. And I'm not even will get into the weeds of that because it's just like actually no need. But it's crazy because Grace says to me when this all kind of hit, have you talked to Charisse? Like, why don't you just call her? And I was like, no, I haven't talked to Charisse. And she said, well, when was the last time you talked to her? And I said, let me think. And I said, you know what? We had filmed season 10. We had wrapped on it. And the week after, NECA invited me out to celebrate Charisse for Charisse's birthday. You were invited too, Kevin.
Yeah.
You couldn't make it. I could. So no cameras. I went to go celebrate Charisse. At the table was NECA, Charisse, me, Ashley. Well, we celebrated Charisse. Charisse had no smoke. She had no fire. We ate dinner. We left there, went to the club, took her to the club because she wanted to go dancing. No smoke, no fire. Charisse had a grand old time. So I just don't know how then Giselle and Ashley, but I'll just speak for myself, are horrible people, bad friends, make up lies, wanted to push her out of Potomac,
Yeah.
All these things that are simply not true.
Yeah.
So now that I know, Sharice, how you really feel, now that I know, I will govern myself accordingly. But because I have always cared about Sharice and I will continue to care about her, I wish her the best of luck. I want nothing but great things in her life, and God bless. But
Yeah.
there's never been a moment for me to support Sharice, and I haven't done it. There's
Right.
never been a moment for me to speak up for Sharice, and I haven't done it.
Right.
So
Yeah, I don't really know where all the energy towards you came from. I was very surprised to hear that. Very, very, very surprised to hear that. Um and then regarding the Ashley stuff, I know she said something like she thought it was a joke. She didn't believe it. Um and then I don't know, but uh, I think I'm just thinking like maybe a lot of times on the show it's like you experience something and then you watch it back and then you have a different perspective or somebody says something to give you a different perspective and to make you think about things differently, which so she could have changed her thought process about everything and probably maybe looked at it a little deeper or maybe somebody, said something that made her whatever, like think differently. But um I don't know. I mean, I wish I had like a little more insight to be able to say like, no, this is exactly what the issue was, especially with you. I don't know, but yeah, I'm gonna have to call her and be like,
you
what
call her.
happened? And we spoke recently, very recently, and after the Ashley stuff. Um, we spoke and she didn't have anything negative to say about you. So I don't know how she got on that topic. No, I didn't watch the whole interview. I just saw clips and I saw like the headlines where it was like, Sharice says Giselle, whatever, 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 or she was implying, some person and it was clear that she was talking about you. And I'm like, I don't know where this came from. Like
I,
she's never like the thing that I didn't understand, she's never said anything like that to me. Like never, like never. And then I
okay,
know like you always vouched for Sharice. You always tried to get her included and spoke to production about, let's include Sharice. And so I'm just like, I don't know where that came from, but I hate that we're here.
God bless her. God bless. And
Yeah.
because if I know that I've been nothing but a friend to you, and then you just like make shit up in your head, I can't help you further, right?
Yeah.
Like it's unnecessary. Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
all
I
right.
mean, I can understand that. It's like, where do you go with that? I don't know, but it's unfortunate that it got there. But I don't know. My thought is just like somebody must have just like said something that made her like,
And even if
I
somebody
don't know.
did gas you up, you still have your own mind. You still have your own history. I
Yeah,
have what, a 15-year history with Sharice, and last I checked, I did not do anything to her. So
yeah, yeah,
it is what it is. God bless her. I wish her nothing but greatness in life. Her and
yeah,
her whole family, like the kids, everybody. Like what?
yeah.
Okay, I
Giselle was blindsided by what Sharice had to say, and she's never called her, at least to our knowledge, she's never called her or never figured out why Sharice went on a tangent on her interviews and threw darts at her. So it comes across to me, even though it was subtle, that she's not feeling Sharice right now. My personal opinion. So they talk about that. Then Tia got involved. And I think one of the questions that was aimed at Stacy was why did she um, go so hard for Tia at her event than she did with Ashley when Ashley was being really nasty and mean to her. And then she talks about, I don't know why she went at Tia like that. But anyway, so they talk about that. And then there was a question to Ashley. Ashley is like upbeat and funny. She said, but this year, it was more like she was mean and nasty to people. And so she was like, well, who was I being mean and nasty to? And Angel speaks up and says, me and Stacy. And, because then they bring up the catfish comment. And then Wendy was like, and who said the catfish comment? And Giselle said, I did. And then they bring up the point that she had so much hostility for Wendy, Angel did, that she didn't say anything to Giselle. She said, because you said, and Wendy said, you looked at Giselle as a big sister, but yet you had all the smoke for me, but Giselle was the one that said it. So it was that. I'm not sure what happened between Kiana. Kiana was trying to apologize or something to Angel or something like that, but Wendy and Angel were going back and forth with some type of dialogue, and Kiana was trying to speak. For whatever reason, she shut Angel down because Angel was like, well, whatever she wants to say, let her say it first, and then I'll respond to you. And Wendy said, no, me and you were having a conversation. So I don't know what type of relationship Kiana and Angel have. It's almost like high school. Like you have a leader or the lead person or the head person, and then all the rest of the girls fall in line. And that's what Karen and Angel give me. That's what they give me. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. And I don't know. And then she was like, and then when Kiana said what she had to say, like she was apologizing, whatever, it wasn't, she could have saved that for, last, or she didn't have to say nothing at all. Cause it wasn't like, okay. Cause she was like, what is this? What is this? They go in and talking about, Ashley being mean to Wendy with the whole ordeal. Ashley said, well, she said, I didn't know how serious your situation was. She said, because you were smiling on your picture. She said, I really didn't know how serious it was. She said, and I didn't. She said, and I tried. And she even told Andy, I tried to apologize. And I think she did try to apologize at BravoCon, but Wendy wasn't trying to have it. But then Wendy said something about there was an ulterior motive with Ashley, like she didn't want her on the show or something. And Ashley basically said, well, when you first came on the show, you were down on everybody. You made it seem like you were better than everyone. And then they flash back to a scene where Wendy's talking about, I have 4 degrees. I have 4 degrees. I am not stupid. However, that was short-lived. 5 years ago, because that's how long Wendy's been on the show. Those 4 degrees didn't help her stay out of jail. Yeah, no. I don't know if I would classify you as not being stupid, because a smart person would not be in the situation that you're in now. So, and it don't take 4 degrees to know that. Just saying. Anywho, I think Ashley says, well, she said something about her accomplishments or whatever. She said, I don't brag or I don't speak on my accomplishments or whatever. And I'm paraphrasing. And Wendy says, that's because you don't have any. So then Ashley comes back. She said, well, I know I have one social security number. Mic drop. And that's how it goes off. So it'll be really interesting how they pick up, because I don't have Wendy letting that slide. However, I'm not sure how much she's going to have to allow to let slide without incriminating her or actually having to speak on the case. I don't know how Wendy's going to respond, but I would have been like, if that's your accomplishment, then we all have the same accomplishment, because we all have one social security number. Boom. You know what I mean? Something to that effect without incriminating herself. You know what I mean? Anyway, I don't know. Y'all, let's get down in the comments and talk about this. What did you think about the first segment of, I do have to say, all the ladies in person in their dresses looked a little better than the pictures. Wendy still reigns supreme as far as her outfit, hands down. With that being said, y'all, everyone be blessed. Peace.